Hello, everybody. My name is Delmar Larsen. I am a professor of chemistry at the University of California, Davis. I'm also the founder and executive director of the LibreText project, which is what I'm obviously discussing today. Thank you very much for cutting some time out of your schedule in order to be able to share this presentation. Yesterday, I gave a presentation that's a general overview of the LibreVerse, which is the set of technologies that constitutes what the LibreText provides for the OER community. Today, I'm going to be focusing on a very specific component of the LibreVerse. In fact, it's going to be our first public presentation of this to the community, and we'll be discussing this in more detail in the upcoming months. And that's the Commons&Conductor technology. And I'm going to give a very short, just a 5-7 lecture introduction, general overview of the LibreText project before we transition into the Commons&Conductor. And that's going to be largely pulling up the conductor and showing you the features that it has and what you can capitalize on it. Like I mentioned in the chat, hopefully if you guys came in before I wrote it down, if you go to www.commons.libretext.org, you can get a free account in the upper right-hand corner, and you can even follow along with what I'm going to be showing you on my side. So let's begin. First thing I'd like to mention is that it was a week ago, 14 years ago, that the very first edit to the ChemWiki, which is the precursor to the LibreText project, was written into our server. So we are 14 years old out there, which makes us one of the more mature OER projects currently available. And we're very excited about how we're going. We're looking forward to our 15th anniversary, where we're going to be throwing a wild shindig. Hopefully it's not going to be virtual. So let's start with the mission statement that we have for our project. So we're implementing a community-built OER platform for the construction, curation, adoption, and adaption of OER that's be curated at multiple levels. This is the overall mission statement of the LibreText project. Community means you, so we're not trying to provide this is what you want to adopt or buy. We want people to come into the project in order to be able to move it forward, because by moving it forward, or with having multiple people contribute to it, provides the opportunity in order to everyone to benefit from that. It's an OER platform, which for the sake of this conversation, I'm just going to say it means free, although we can certainly debate what OER means, and there's lots of debates out there about what it technically means. It's comprehensive, meaning that we follow a no gap left behind policy. So while the first part of the LibreText, the ChemWiki, focused on chemistry, we've expanded our scope to essentially cover all of academic community, set of fields. That means both horizontally in terms of the range of departments and fields, and vertically in terms of the level, where we actually have a K-12 library, and we also have topics that are addressed at the graduate level out there. We also follow a no tech left behind policy. That is the belief that as emerging technologies, more specifically emerging open source technologies, become available, we can then capitalize on bringing them into our platform, so everyone that partakes in the benefits and the utility of the LibreText can then capitalize on that additional technologies without having to worry about the issues behind it. And lastly, the content that we have, we want it to be dynamic. And so essentially the term that we have is a living library of content that you're able to continually update and curate, because no book is ever done. And no OER project is sufficiently good that it doesn't deserve to be reviewed from time to time in order to bring it up to speed. That means that we want to be able to make a dynamic library. The opposite of this would be a dead library, and that would be, for example, a series of PDFs, which is a more painful mechanism in order to distribute content that's out there. So what is the LibreText project? Well, there are 3 different facets that one can view the LibreText project from. From the authoring platform, an OER authoring platform, it's a construction infrastructure. It provides the ability in order to build advanced OER textbooks and then to be able to advance that using emerging technologies in order to be able to have the next generation textbook out there. The LibreText is also a dissemination platform. In fact, it's the largest central repository of OER textbook material on the internet today. And that's there are a variety of reasons that underlies why it's grown so big over the last few years. But one of the key aspects is the infrastructure that people have in order to build the books, not just to be able to distribute that. And lastly, from the student's perspective, is using the LibreText as a learning platform. And when I say learning platform, I mean primarily from the textbook perspective, although we've been expanding our scope strongly, as I'll mention momentarily, beyond just a conventional textbook. So anyone who's paying attention to textbooks over the last few years, whether they're commercial or they're OER, has recognized that the nature of the textbook is evolving. And no longer is it a physical entity that has paper-based images that you're able to sell oftentimes at a significant markup, but it constitutes taking advantage of emerging technologies or even established technologies that go beyond just a traditional paper-based version or an analog of that on the digital version, which would be like PDFs. In this case here, we've built something to reflect the evolving textbook, and we refer to that as the LibreVerse. And the LibreVerse consists of multiple pseudo-independently operating but interconnected servers and applications in order to augment and both the editing capabilities, the dissemination capabilities, and the learning capabilities for each of those three features. And I will mention here that sometimes I talk from different hats. I wear three different hats. I, as a faculty, am involved in building OER and editing OER for my classes. As a OER platform developer, I'm very much involved in ed tech and implementing the ed tech. And I'm also co-chair of the Aggie Open, which is an OER program on my campus in order to be able to promote OER out there. So I wear different hats at different times in order to be able to push different arguments. And I will try to reflect that if I should switch from one to the other. But the key point of being able to wear these different hats means that it infuses not just myself, but the rest of my team was also embedded in academia with a very end user product. So we're trying to figure out what do faculty need. Because we're all faculty, we don't have to go through the process of asking faculty what they need. We know what we need in the classroom, or at least the classes that we teach. And so that helps to make things a little bit more efficient in the way we deal with it. So the LibreVerse, again, consists of multiple applications that are interconnected. There's only one application I'm going to be talking about today, which is the Commons&Conductor system. We will be posting the video from yesterday's Open Education Week presentation on our YouTube channel that goes into all the different components of the LibreVerse very soon. But before I mention that, I just want to talk about the impact off of here. So I mentioned that the LibreText project was the largest central repository of OER content and the most popular online today. We've distributed close to 800 million page views since we started 14 years ago at roughly 800 to 900,000 page views a day. We have somewhere in the order, and these numbers are not 100% up to date, but we have somewhere in the order of 500,000 pages of OER content that people can utilize in order to be able to build or remix content for their customized textbooks. We have over 120,000 online assessments via our homework systems. We have about 1,000 centralized books that we bring in, and another 1,000 books that are curated, let me phrase that, customized for individual campuses that are hosted on campus hubs or campus bookshelves out there. And as you can see, we've been growing exponentially over the last few years off of it. So that's just an overview. I want to emphasize here that when we're building projects or facilitating the building of projects, it's relatively easy in order to be able to handle one or a couple projects using just conventional emailing capabilities. When you get up to 10 plus the projects, it starts to become painful in order to use emails to coordinate it. And when it gets up to 100, it starts to be exceedingly difficult, and you need a new technology out there. At any one time, the LibreText project, either internally or via our partners, are facilitating the construction of somewhere in the order of 200 to 300 OER projects out there. And the conventional email approach that we were using when we were smaller is just unable to handle things at scale. So we needed to have new technology in order to be able to address that. And that's what the Commons&Conductor technology is. So I will end this discussion before going into the actual technology with what I started, which is the mission statement. We're implementing a community-built platform for the construction, curation, adoption, and adaption of OER that's comprehensive and can be curated at multiple levels. So with that, let's actually go into the conductor. So the conductor is the brainchild of Ethan Turner, who is actually in our attendance here. He's an advanced computer science student here at UC Davis. Has been working on this thing for close to a year. And the Commons&Conductor system has two fronts. or let me two aspects behind it. It has the front end and has the back end. So the front end, anyone can access. You don't need an account in order to deal with it. The back end, you need an account, and that's what I mentioned that I encourage you to do. That if you just go into the login conductor, you can create your own account right here, or you can even couple to your campus single sign-on infrastructure if it has either Google or Microsoft enabled email. Now, for that, otherwise, you can do a local account on our system. It's perfectly fine. So let's talk about the front end. So we have 500,000 pages of content distributed mostly in terms of collections as books, although we do have collections of like laboratories or other things that don't fall in line with a conventional book, but they're more of a mechanism for you to be able to go through and identify things that are connected together. And I use laboratories as the primary example for that, but there are other visualizations and simulations that you want to keep together for people to capitalize on remixing off of it. So the front end, the Commons, is designed as a mechanism in order to search. So it's a search portal through all our libraries collectively. And this is the infrastructure how we have it today. There's an advanced search on here that I'll get to momentarily, but anyone can come in and do a simple search in order to be able to find something. I'm just going to grab calculus, and it goes through all the libraries. And we have 14 independently operating libraries, and it will do a search here on calculus. It identified 21 topics, and this is doing a search at the book level, not at the page level, although we will have that capability very soon. And you can identify, well, these are all the things that have calculus in the title or calculus in the author. Or so I think that was augmented, although Ethan can certainly chime in if I'm not saying things properly. He just updated it this past evening. So this provides a very powerful mechanism in order to say, what does the LibreText have at the book level? If you go to any of these books, you'll get an interface to the book. It's something like a cover page that you would have on other platforms, and it provides a mechanism in order to have multiple export options, including being able to go to it online, which I will show right here. So here's that active prelude to calculus book its infrastructure is right here. You can then download a PDF of it. You can get a print copy of that, and it goes through Lulu Express API in order to be able to provide a physical copy at cost or near cost for that physical book. You can download a zip file that has PDFs of every single page, so you can do your own crude remixing if you want after the fact. You can also get the files that you would upload to Lulu Express if you want to be able to manipulate it in some way or another before uploading for customization. That's perfectly fine. And then we get a common cartridge export in order to be able to allow people to take this book and embed it into their learning management system directly. You'll notice a few other things here. One is that you have the summary, and this is a dynamic table of contents that's also active hyperlink. So you can go through the table of contents for the entire book from every single page that's available, and you can even click on them and go to the specific page that's used that you find there. So it's a really good top-level overview of these sort of things. And there are a few additional features off of here. One is that if you're an instructor of record that has adopted this book, you can then submit an adoption report, and that makes it convenient for us to organize adoption reports, and also makes it convenient for people who are consortium members or authors of books in order to be able to track how their books are adopted out there. And this provides a simplified way in order to preserve and maintain the infrastructure around adoptions for demonstrating impacts and such. We also have a peer review system, which I'll talk about on the backside, which provides an opportunity for people to come in and provide their review that's out there. And there are different rubrics that are available off of that. There are a few additional things to the front end, including the libraries, where you can actually search through the libraries and find out what you want. This is Espanol library, which is the Spanish version of the library. But if you go to a chemistry, you can then, let's do an expansion right here. Actually, that's going to a link. You can go through the libraries. We have collections, and these are collections of partners or communities that we're trying to tie together. So you can go in and say, what are the open RN books that we have available on our platform that people can then capitalize on? The same thing with open courseware or OpenStax or we are in other platforms or other partners that we have established. Now, like I mentioned to you before, the nature of the textbook's expanding. The concept is the textbook needs to be augmented with additional technologies. And one of the primary technologies that we've had a focus on building over the last couple of years has been the homework system. Just like we have collections of pages in order to constitute books, we have collections of assignments to constitute a homework course of sorts in order to complement the book. For example, here's the book that we would have for the French 101 book that was built by the Open Education Resource Initiative from the California Community College System. And then you can go in and you could find, and you could view through those assignments, in this case here anonymously, and you can say, well, chapter 1 has these assignments and start to do, this is transitioning into the ADAPT homework system, which is not the point of this conversation, although I'll be discussing it in more detail tomorrow. And this right here is using H5P, which is one of the technologies that we have available. The key aspect is that we view we view collections either as textbooks or as homework collections on equal footing in order to be able to distribute that and get that out there. And we're still in the infancy of building these collections, and we expect them to grow quite rapidly in the near future. Lastly, and this will be a segue into the back end, the conductor side, is the under development perspective. So the key aspect that we have in this Commons and Conductor technology is that it provides a mechanism for people to construct and build projects and organize their projects. Typically on the LibreText project, although you can use this on any other platform that you want, you just don't take advantage of the capabilities of the LibreText that's wired into here. And this provides a mechanism under development in order to find out what is being done anywhere else within our infrastructure. Now, our infrastructure is not just our internal infrastructure, it's anyone who's building a project that's public, because you have the ability in order to make a private product in the conductor. And then when you're constructing a new project, you can go in here and then you can identify, well, what are the projects that are available? For example, since Suzanne was here, I'm not sure. Am I not spelling things right? I don't think the search infrastructure was wired up here, but the search infrastructure on the back end will be connected off of that. So you can have the ability to say, well, you do the front end and say what books are for a specific topic like Arabic happen to be available, or you can do a search on what books or what projects are currently under construction anywhere within the LibreVerse infrastructure that addresses specific keywords that are out there. So let me transition into the conductor aspect. I will mention before I do that is that the technology here that I'm showing here is freely available. It's open source. It's on GitHub. Anyone can grab it and pull it down here. We run our own centralized server here for everyone to capitalize on it. The whole community, anyone can log into it. However, consortium members of our LibreNet have the ability in order to have customized versions of them, which could be useful in order to showcase what has been created on a specific campus, and then being able to use that in order to distribute that to the respective stakeholders. For example, this is Prince George Community College, and they have 46 books that have been created for their campus in order to be able to push the OER. They're part of our Department of Education grant, and they've been doing a great job in order to swap over their infrastructure, the connection to commercial textbooks off of there. Anyways, that is available to consortium members. Otherwise, people can just use our LibreNet off of here. So let me go into the back end. And the back end is a bit more complicated than the front end Commons and portal off here. So the back end was meant in order to be able to handle this need that we have in terms of organizing teams in order to be able to build projects. Because again, we tried multiple technologies other than emails, but none of them really were well suited for what we wanted to be able to do. And then decided to just build what we wanted off of there. And that's available again to you guys freely. So this is me logged into this project, into it. When you guys log in, you're not going to have any projects. So this is going to be bare. I believe it's going to be just empty, which is perfectly fine to start out with. And when you log into this dashboard, you have three key aspects. We have some announcements in order to tell you what people are available. For example, Ethan just 10 minutes ago gave some announcements here regarding the upgrades that he did a handful of hours ago. We have the infrastructure in here in order to be able to request harvesting, which is our way in which we can receive requests from the community to say we want an OER project to be integrated into the LibreVerse. And that's necessary in order to remix from it effectively. Adoption reports, accounting requests, and such like that. But before I talk about my alerts, I just want to talk about these projects. So the intent here is that every single project, every book has a back-end project page. And back-end project page is sort of like the nitty-gritty, dirty sausage making like infrastructure that you can go to in order to address how was a book created, how did people address it, and other details associated that are not reflected in the actual book that's put out there. That's useful because it means that when years are down the road, people can go in and start to see the details about what the book was involved with and other aspects associated. So I want to just discuss one of them, and I'm going to talk about this beginner to advanced healthcare Spanish OER manual. It's a project that we're supporting in the state of California in order to address Spanish for healthcare book. And this is what a general project looks like that we have here. We have 6 different categories at the top in order to address specific things. We identify progress of a project in 3 different criteria. We have construction right here, we have peer review, and we have accessibility. And this is right now a manual update, but there will be some automatic aspects associated with this, and I will mention how that comes in place. So the key point here is to take away the emailing as the primary mechanism in order to communicate and use the communication infrastructure within the conductor in order to facilitate intra-team or team to project facilitator, project liaison infrastructure. So to this end, for example, this team right here has about 10 different people. Yes, I'm a member on it too. People can have different roles. For example, we have a lead that runs a role. We have a liaison where I'm basically trying to be in the background in order to guide a little bit of that. And then we have a series of members that are focused part of the team. We have the ability to manage team by adding team members at any point that we want here. And they provide a mechanism such that when we have a discussion thread, the discussion thread will be the equivalent of our emailing infrastructure. So you can make a thread on specific topics like progress, and that's just basically a communication line about what was done, addressing progress or a project, addressing a project site or 3D anatomy applications and such. And it provides a very centralized mechanism such that 1 month later, if it's necessary for me to be able to address something on this specific project, I can come in and I can see what the topic of discussion was done on it. Now, can I do this on an email? Yes, I can. Is it painful for doing this for 100 to 200 pages via email? Immensely. And this provides a simplified mechanism in order to put this up. So not only do I have issues when I come in as a liaison here, if someone else comes in order to take over the project, they can see the overall view and then run with it. And this has simplified our lives and my inboxes immensely to the point in which I don't have discussions with projects teams on specific project topics outside of the conductor. Anyways, so I digress off of here. This has some project properties depending upon where we actually classify this in different aspects, including that this is a private project. So you're not going to have access to this because they don't want you to have access. And when I say access, meaning that the project exists via a search infrastructure. And a few additional features off of here, including links and such that you have available and meta tagging in order to be able to identify the project off of here.
Delmar, we got our first question
Sure.
from Suzanne and Kelsey. Question is, can you set it so that the notifications are sent to your email when there's a new discussion thread?
Yes. When I'm not sure if it's when the thread is created or when something is written in the thread. I think it's when the content is written in the thread that it then spits it out. But typically when you're making a new thread, you have to have a comment in the thread in order to be able to do that. And I'll let Ethan step up if I'm actually misrepresenting that. Okay, so Kelsey and Suzanne, you're doing the same thing. So in other words, we get emails, and I could check my email right now to see if I have any threads that have been discussed off here. But it makes things really convenient in order to just go straight into a discussion thread without having to review what anyone else has been doing off of here. So normally I get a load of these things, and I'm just trying to pull up an email off of here. And I've deleted so many of them that, anyways. Ethan or Yassine, do you think you can make a comment on
Yes,
a project?
Yeah, Ethan has jumped into the chat, so thank you. We've covered it. Thank you.
A chat somewhere that I can't see. Anyways, I digress. Okay, so this is a way in order to facilitate communication and targeted communication. There's a secondary mechanism for that, and that is around tasks. So the tasks can be organized in any way you want. One way to organize that is based on the structure of the book. So you can make a book and say, well, here's a book that consists of 16 chapters. They've organized how they want the chapters to be. They can go into any one of these chapters, and then you can make subtasks, for example, sections of those chapters. And I'm hoping at some point we'll be able to make these things automatic if you create those books on the LibreText and bring it in. But you can then have a discussion thread focusing particularly on that project. Or that subtask, and you can even assign members to each of those subtasks that you want in order to facilitate a more targeted discussion that's out there. So this gives a great overview of the overall perspective off of that. As you can notice, you do have times and dates associated with these things, and those can be useful in order to be able to keep the project on track in order to be able to handle these things, and even to identify when things are overdue. In other words, when it hasn't been classified as complete. I will maybe batch. Okay, so I will mention that if we go to the timeline window, we can then view these tasks because they have these dates in two different ways, either as a Gantt plot view. So you can just say, okay, what's the overall picture of these things if you give the times and dates associated with a specific project, or specific subtasks that you can then make as dependencies that come off of here. You can also flip to a calendar view, and then you can write a deadline in the task that says, I want to have an overview, if I'm a liaison, for example, of this book at 30% by this day. And then the team members sees the deadline over and over again every time they go to their project in order to be able to communicate. And I'm not sure if there's a time notification or so in order to be able to remind people about that, although that's not a bad idea. Hint, hint, Ethan. So along the same timeline, there are multiple workflows or roadmaps in order to be able to build the books. This is one roadmap that we have put in place, although there are different roadmaps for different campuses that will be available. And for example, when someone wants to build a book, we have this 12-step process that we encourage people in order to follow. The first step involves a vision, getting accounts, getting the training, evaluating whether it's a remixing project or it's a customized project from scratch, start to go through environmental scan, mapping, etc. like that, in order to guide people into how to build an OER project. And what will be more clear here is specific issues that LibreText provides people, like the how to augment and make a dynamic index, or make a flexible glossary that can be reused on multiple projects that's out there. And again, the intent that we have is to be able to make this flexible. So if this roadmap is not the roadmap that you follow, you can then implement your own roadmap in there, and then reflect that also in the tasks, in the timelines that you have here in order to guide them. The key point is to provide a scaffold in order to be able to build the book from start to end, so that everybody knows what they need to do in order to go to the next step and move it forward. And this has made our lives much, much easier because we don't have to replicate the same conversation, the same discussion points with multiple projects. Peer review infrastructure is one of the 3 levels in order to evaluate progress on a project. These are typically done after construction has reached 100% or near 100%, and it provides a mechanism in order to let people submit reviews directly on the conductor, and centralize it such that you can then go and curate it, review it, even organize it. If it's based off of numbering systems, you can see the average submission and other things like that that's come out here. We don't have any review infrastructure set up in place. Right now, we have 2 rubrics that are available, although you can expand it with more. One is the Affordable Learning Georgia. One is a campus draft that I believe is based off of Merlot or Skills Commons. And this right here, again, from Affordable Learning Solutions rubric, you can come in and then evaluate. And it's a relatively simple one in order to be able to figure out how you want to address this thing. Moreover, you can give these things out as a URL. So that you can hand out to your reviewers and say, here's the project, here's the review, just complete the review online, and then we have access to it, and then we're able to take a look at it. It's still in its infancy. It's only been around for a few weeks, so we don't have a review other than a mocked up reviews in order to be able to show, but we're very excited about this because review is one of the critical aspects in terms of moving a project forward. I think there was a question from Kelsey. Yeah, Kelsey. So you can customize the review rubric to whatever you like, and we've looked at multiple review rubrics out there. Do we need to send it to you guys to upload? It's a customized infrastructure. You can. Actually, I don't know how we made it so it's custom. You can manually make it. Ethan, do you have a comment on that question? How you customize the rubric off of here? We don't do it.
Right now, it's only for administrators, but we certainly can open it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So if you're an administrator on the campus, you get access to the review thing, the peer review rubrics. So you can create it first. So not any user or any author can create it as an administrator for this campus, or if you have your own instance of that, which Kelsey, you're going to have soon, you can then come in and create your rubric however you want and move it forward. And we're happy to work with you in order to be able to guide that. And it's quite flexible right now in order to be able to facilitate that and then distribute it. Moreover, that's the rubric that you can then embed on the Commons page, on the front page. And eventually it'll be embedded onto the page on the LibreText. So if you read the content on the page on the LibreText, you can just click on it and submit a review without having to go directly to the Commons. So anyways, we're very excited about that. And the last one, and this is, I think, really cool, is accessibility. So it's clear that you have these 3 criteria, and success is dictated by a suitable number of peer reviewing of the books and a suitable number of accessibility review. The problem with accessibility is that it's a painful process in order to be able to implement, and there's a lot of ambiguity out there, not necessarily in terms of the rules behind it, but the fact that many of us, faculty and otherwise, are not trained in order to be able to evaluate accessibility very well. So to that end, our accessibility team, which will be presenting, I believe, tomorrow morning or Friday morning. I will let Jennifer chime in on either of those because I don't have the schedule memorized. They came in and Nicholas, who handles the primary evaluation of these things, he is paid in order to be able to apply 81 criteria per page. And that's the process that he does. That's the professional level evaluation off of there. So when you go to the accessibility side of your conductor, yeah, you have an accessibility thread in order to be able to facilitate a targeted conversation behind that. But what is really cool is this one. This is the Accessibility Compliance Review Matrix. This is an ACR, a mini ACR associated with this book. And the intent off of that is that when you make this book on the LibreText, you can come in and then basically bring in all the pages in every chapter in the LibreText, and it comes in and it populates this matrix. And the matrix will have 81 criteria, the same 81 criteria that Nicholas charges in order to be able to evaluate. They're going to be used in here. Those criteria are going to be set into 3 categories. Category number 1 is the criteria associated with the platform. That's the one that we handle on our side for reviewing because everyone uses that. The second one is content that requires a human in order to be able to evaluate it. And the third one are criteria that doesn't require a human. You can actually use a computer in order to be able to do that. For example, here's one criterion: is the text contrast 4.5 to 1 for all text 18 points or smaller. That's stuff that a computer can come in and evaluate quickly. Or for example, our, I'm not sure if this has changed. Okay, maybe I've moved it. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, that's why it's gone. So our alt text under 150 characters. Just let the bot go through and evaluate that, and then leave the small snippet. It's not quite so small. It still has a lot of criteria out there that requires a human in order to be able to do that. And then the human, whether it happens to be a professional that comes in, or if you train a student or you train a faculty member or instructional designer in order to come in and say, well, here's this book here or this chapter here, and I believe that this is evaluated correctly. And they can come in and they can evaluate these things on toggle switches. Now, if you have 100 pages and you have 81 criteria, that means this matrix is 810 entries off of here. So it's significantly, by several orders of magnitude, more complex than other OER rubric out there, but it's the most accurate used by the professionals out there in order to evaluate these resources. And it provides a permanent or pseudo-permanent record of that book. So you can come in at any one time and someone can read and say, okay, I'm going to take a look and I'm going to evaluate that one. I'm going to click that one and click this one. The key aspect here, and I should emphasize this, and I'm sure many of you already know, is that accessibility is not a simple Boolean. It's not a simple on or off or accessible or not accessible. It's a spectrum out there. And this is the way that reflects that spectrum in order to say what is exactly necessary in order to move this project forward, in order to satisfy accessibility compliance reviews. That system, which will automatically handle the criteria that bots will handle, and bring in the pages off of here, provides an exceedingly powerful record in order to demonstrate the accessibility aspects associated with a specific book. And these are one of the things that we've had a hard time reconcile when we bring in and review other books into the LibreText project that just don't have the necessary complexity and the accessibility in order to be able to move it forward. We don't know what we need to do. And this provides a mechanism to just rip it apart and now provide a mechanism in order to move forward. And we're very excited about that. So that was the basic aspects of the conductor. We feel it handles 95% of what we want, if not more, within organizing and facilitating the construction of OER textbooks that are out there. I'll mention a couple things that are particularly exciting right now. The first one is that if you are interested in knowing what other projects are out there, you can do a search here in order to be able to do this. And this is the one that is live. And you can identify, well, what projects are out there? Well, these are projects that are compiled. Actually, no, I'm sorry. These are projects that are under construction. So here are two projects that we have: elementary Arabic and this beginning guides to Arabic. These things should probably, this one should be complete. They're still under construction. And it gives you a great way in order to review it or identify books that have already been compiled. So this is the back end and this is the front end of that. There are no homeworks, and you can even do searches off a user. That's fine. That's great in order to be able to do that. However, let's say that next week, we make a book on Arabic and you are building something on Arabic. You want to be notified off of that. We have a new alert system that you can come in and you can say, I want to know when any book on Arabic has either been compiled or is ongoing. That's publicly available. And you can throw homework off of there. And then the LibreGrid means it searches not just on the Libre Commons, the central one, but across the whole network of these commons and conductors for each of the consortium members. And then you can put this indication. And now if anyone in Harrisburg Area Community College, they decide to make an Arabic book, and they make a project that has that K tag into it, I will then get an email notification saying this project, subject to these things, have been created somewhere. And it's an exceedingly powerful way in order to be able to keep track of the growing infrastructure that's within LibreText in order to be able to guide how we are moving things forward. That was the search infrastructure. Ethan, did I forget anything that you updated over the weekend?
I think that's it for the new things this week.
Okay, that sounds great. We think this is very exciting. It provides a great deal of power. When you are, I'll mention the control panel. This is for administrators of these projects, not for the average user. So you can come in and evaluate for example, adoption reports. You can find out where the adoption reports on specific books on your respective campus, or that you have an interest in order to be able to track. And then from that, you can identify a relevant information in terms of how many students are in the book, number of students, institution names, cross-reference it. You can then use this as a mechanism to poke the instructors via an email before every turn in order to entice them in order to re-update their adoption credentials, so you can actually improve the fidelity of the database and the collection for moving it forward. And we think this is really great. I mean, we need this because it's been an exceedingly painful process for us to be able to track how many students are benefit from the resources that we have out there. Financially, we know, again, because we have 800,000 pages reviewed per day, it's a tremendous number, but I don't have a dollar sign in order to be able to argue to stakeholders about how much money we've saved. And this provides a mechanism to facilitate that in a coherent, centralized approach in order to be able to do that. So I will get off my soapbox. I am exceedingly excited about the Commons&Conductor system, because it was necessary for us to be able to transition to, because the conventional ways that we were doing things via emails and such just do not operate at scale. And we needed something far more powerful, and that's what we have here. So I will end with that. I can answer some questions. I see Veronica asked a question. Can you show us the fields for creating a new project? Yeah, sure. Let's make a new project out here. You have, like I said, you can create an account right now and go through the same process I'm doing right here. So here is the project overview that you created for a new project. It has a title, which needs to have something down there. Classification, we have different types of projects out there that are part of the database. Harvesting is the term in order to say that we have the ability in order to bring in existing OER content that was created outside of the LibreVerse. Curation means that things have already been created, but they're always under constant review. You notice that nothing here is complete, even though we use that term loosely. Things are just basically moved from active development to curation. Construction projects from scratch, technology, if that's a project that you're doing, LibreFest, because we're going to be able to make it so that people can use the Commons in order to run their own LibreFest, which is a localized workshop or a global workshop, although people, I mean, we're going to be using it for our LibreFest this summer. Course reports, adoption reports. You can make things either public or private, where public, you're able to do a search for it. People are able to find it. They're not able to see everything that you have out there, but they're able to find it. And private means that no one knows it exists except for you or your team members that's out there. Project URL, if you have a project that's already in place in a sandbox or in our site. Meta tags out there. This right here is if you're harvesting, it's useful in order to be able to keep the credentials of the resource that we have brought in here that's out there, and some additional notes. And then once you do that, you create the project and it looks just like what we have before, but this is blank where everything is empty. And then you have to go in order to be able to do these things. I encourage you to be able to play with it. Most of these things are relatively straightforward in how they work forward, just a little bit of definitions in order to be able to do that. And then I'm going to delete this project by going into the danger zone. And every time I hear that, I think I hear Top Gun in my background. Anyways, so that's it. So let's see here. Veronica has another question. Can you use harvesting to use OER? I'm not entirely sure, Veronica, what that means. Can you use harvesting to use OER on websites? So harvesting is our term for integrating of content into our platform, integrating of OER content, because that's one of the 5 R's I can count, one of the 5 R's of OER. So we want to take the content from any source, whether it happens to be press books or a website or a LaTeX or handwritten notes or Word document or Google, whatever. There's a variety of different formats out there, and we bring them in, we rip them apart, and we put them onto a standard that we've established it. Implement some new codes off it in order to empower it, and then that, because it's all been converted into our standards, makes it so that when someone wants, as an instructor, wants to remix the book, they can grab and pick and choose and put it together without having to dork with that sort of issues. In other words, we do the pain in order to harvest from a PDF, such that you don't have to copy and paste from a PDF, which is exceedingly painful in order to do. That's harvesting. We have if you go to harvest.libretext.org, it will go to this website right here, which is a request to harvest that anyone can do. So if you have OER content that you want to contribute to our site, you come in here and you basically say, here's the name, here's the library that you want to put the site in. You ask the format. If you need it on a priority list, certain priority time frame, you can write that down there. It will take a look at, review it, and then I have a team of about 100 undergraduate harvesters, and their job is to take this existing content, and then strip it away, put it, standardize it, then apply meta tags and do everything in order to bring it up to the standard that we have off here so you can then benefit from it. And that right there is done through the Commons and Conductor. And then I have the ability to review those harvest requests right here. And here are several harvest requests that are still pending that I haven't reviewed yet. Some is internal, some's Andy. I think Andy's here. I thought Andy was here. And we have started it, but I haven't consumed it. I could take these things and convert them into a project, a harvesting project that I then hand off to my student harvesters in order to move forward. That's more of a back-end issue that you don't need to worry about it, but that's the utility that we have here. So that's the mechanism in order to be able to give us content in order to be able to bring it in and such. And we do that typically only once for a project. So if that project was slightly edited and you want us to do it again, if it's a painful harvest, and some things are painful, like lots of math and such, in order to convert them over, then we typically don't do that. But we are very interested in taking the existing OER infrastructure out there in the universe and bring it into our platform. So then the bigger our repository or corpus is, the more powerful it is for people in order to edit it. So there you go. That is the Commons&Conductor infrastructure. I encourage you to take advantage of it. Like I said, you can use this on any platform. It doesn't have to be used on the LibreText. However, it's most empowered by using the LibreText infrastructure in place for doing these things and such. So any other questions? Did I miss anything? Do you guys like this? I hope so. So like I said, and you can also download it if you don't want to use it on our instance. You can get the GitHub repository. You just do a search on GitHub and Commons, I presume, and you can pull it up and you can run it. And then if you are, like I said, a consortium member, then, which I have to go to the Commons side, you can then get your own version of it to maintain and preserve it. So it essentially acts as a campus or project portal for anyone to go into. And so you don't have to tell them, just say, here it is, go find it, and then off you go. So. Okay, well, that's what I have to say. Hopefully you'll hear more about the Commons&Conductor system that's out there. For anyone who's actually working on projects within the LibreText, don't be surprised when I start telling people that they need to use this as the only mechanism in order to communicate with my team, because it provides, it's only useful when it's used. So hence why we're going to be pushing people to go through this instead of more ad hoc manners that we've been doing over the last few years. So I thank you for your attention, and I encourage you again to feel free to jump through this and see what you like. And if you have any recommendations for things that you want to have improved on that, feel free to give us a shout out, and we have the ability in order to update this because we made it. So with that, have a good day.
Delmar, can I ask one more question? What was the website that you went to request harvesting information?
Harvest.libretext.org.
Great, thank you.
So there are actually several of them, and they're all on the Commons. So that's the thing. So when you, okay. If you log into the Conductor on the back end, when you log in, it says here's a harvest request, here's an account request, here's a. I might as well just show it since I have it.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so you can
harvest request. Okay.
You can have it all there, so you don't necessarily have to remember what's there. So you can, here's ours, adoption reports, accounting requests. So you can just go to it in order to be able to, in addition to the My Alert infrastructure that's there. So
fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
I'm ready to get started.
Great. I'm excited to hear.